I am Lyra. And as of 3 months ago, I am the owner of Ambrosia. The soft clinking of silver against porcelain, the murmur of satisfied patrons, and the rich, earthy aroma of black truffles filled the air around me. It was a symphony of success, a culinary masterpiece unfolding, orchestrated with a precision that had truly become my signature. I stood near the kitchen pass, observing, my gaze sweeping across the elegant dining room of Ambrosia, a restaurant that was once merely a distant, impossible dream, now a tangible, thriving reality under my command. Tonight, however, held a particular, almost electric significance, a subtle tension that hummed beneath the opulent surface of the sophisticated ambience. My heart beat a steady, rhythmic cadence, a drum of quiet, absolute confidence in my chest. My eyes settled, as they always did, on a specific table in the very center, bathed in the warm, custom-designed glow of the chandelier. Seraphina was there, just as I knew she would be. Her laughter, a sound I had once associated with a tightening knot of raw dread in my stomach, now barely registered as a distant, hollow echo, an insignificant chime in the grand orchestra of my triumph. She was draped in silk, adorned with diamonds that caught the light, and her posture radiated an almost aggressive, unshakable self-assurance. Around her, her familiar clique, equally impeccably dressed, hung on her every perfectly articulated word. They were celebrating something, I gathered, perhaps another trivial social victory, another acquisition of some fleeting status symbol to add to their growing collection of empty accolades. They lifted their champagne flutes, a cascade of effervescent gold bubbling upwards, and Seraphina's voice, though softened by the general hum of the room and the distance, carried a familiar, self-congratulatory ring, dripping with an almost condescending satisfaction. "This place, Ambrosia," she proclaimed, her voice just loud enough to carry, infused with an air of possessive entitlement, "it's just us, isn't it? Our sanctuary. Untouched, unrivaled. Some things are simply meant for a certain kind of people. The right kind of people." A faint, almost imperceptible smile, one that no one else would have noticed, touched my lips. She was right, in a way. Ambrosia was meant for a certain kind of people. But not the kind she so arrogantly imagined. Not the kind she believed herself to embody. They looked at me now, occasionally, their eyes skipping over me like I was part of the decor, an anonymous figure in the background, a silent, efficient cog in the machine. They saw a woman, perhaps a stern manager overseeing the evening, or a diligent restaurant employee, but certainly nothing of Lyra, the fat and ugly girl they had once delighted in tearing down, dissecting, and ridiculing with such relentless glee. They saw nothing of the relentless fire that had burned within me with such an unyielding intensity for years, fueling every sacrifice, every late night spent hunched over cookbooks or simmering pots, every meticulous detail that had transformed this establishment and, more importantly, transformed me. The true revelation of who I was, what I had become, was a secret I had guarded fiercely, a carefully crafted masterpiece of patience and strategic long-term planning. And tonight, that masterpiece was finally complete. The stage was set, the curtain was about to rise on a performance they never saw coming, and Seraphina, in her unwitting, ignorant triumph, was about to become an unexpected, integral part of my grand and utterly satisfying performance. To truly understand the weight and the profound significance of that moment, you must first understand the years that preceded it, the crucible in which I was forged. My adolescence was not a period of carefree discovery, it was a tapestry woven with threads of quiet isolation and the sharp, incessant, almost surgical barbs thrown by Seraphina and her circle. They were the self-proclaimed queens of our high school, beautiful in a superficial way, overwhelmingly popular, and utterly, unthinkingly ruthless in their pursuit of social dominance. They moved through the hallways like a perfectly synchronized, predatory pack. I, on the other hand, was always just Lyra. Awkward, a little heavier than the other girls, a little too quiet, and painfully, acutely self-conscious. My appearance, every perceived flaw, became their favorite, most convenient target. Fat and ugly became a familiar, sickening refrain, whispered in the hallways, scrawled with malicious intent on bathroom stalls, and sometimes, in their boldest moments of cruelty, shouted directly to my face during lunch breaks, their laughter following me like a shadow. Their laughter, that cruel, mocking symphony, echoed in my ears and played on an endless loop in my mind long after the school bell rang, long after I was safely home. It wasn't just words, it was active, deliberate exclusion, the icy sidelong glances, the deliberate turning away when I dared to approach, the way they made me feel utterly invisible, yet simultaneously hypervisible in my perceived flaws, every one of them magnified under their cruel scrutiny. I remember one particular incident with a clarity that still stings, even after all these years. It was the junior prom, an event meant to be magical, a night of fleeting beauty. I had painstakingly saved up every meager penny from my part-time job for a beautiful dress, hoping, against all odds, to feel beautiful, to feel normal, for just one night. As I walked into the gymnasium, a nervous bundle of hope and anxiety, Seraphina, in a dazzling, form-fitting sequined gown that glittered under the disco lights, caught my eye. She pointed at me, a subtle, dismissive gesture, and whispered something to her inner circle, followed by a ripple of suppressed giggles that seemed to echo through the cavernous gym. Their eyes, filled with detached amusement, swept over me, lingering on areas I was most self-conscious about, and I felt as though I was standing naked, exposed and vulnerable, in front of them all. The dress, once a symbol of hope, suddenly felt like a costume of profound humiliation. I left shortly after, the weight of their judgment crushing me. In those dark, lonely moments, a quiet, unexpected solace began to emerge, slowly, almost tentatively. It was cooking. My grandmother, a woman of immense warmth, ancient wisdom, and quiet strength, had always found comfort and profound joy in the kitchen. She taught me that food wasn't just sustenance, it was an act of love, a profound form of expression, a universal way to connect with others, to soothe, to celebrate. I started experimenting, first with simple, comforting recipes, then venturing bravely into more complex, challenging dishes. The kitchen became my sanctuary, my refuge, a place where I could create, where my hands could mold and transform humble ingredients into something beautiful, something delicious, where the results were tangible, undeniable, and undeniably good. The smells, the textures, the flavors, they transported me, offering a quiet rebellion against the chaos and cruelty of my external world. While they obsessed over superficial appearances, I found true beauty in the intricate alchemy of ingredients, a beauty that was deep, real, and lasting. After high school, I knew I needed to escape that suffocating environment. I took a job at a greasy, bustling diner, working long, grueling shifts for minimum wage, barely scraping by. But every penny I earned, every spare moment I had, was dedicated with an almost religious fervor to my burgeoning passion. I devoured cookbooks, dog-eared pages of culinary journals, watched every cooking show I could find, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. I saved religiously, scrounging on every luxury, driven by a singular, burning desire, to master the culinary arts, to become something undeniable. I sought out mentors, offering to work for free in local restaurants just to learn techniques, to understand the relentless rhythm and the unspoken language of a professional kitchen. My hands, once clumsy and hesitant, became precise, confident instruments. My palate, once unrefined, became discerning, capable of detecting the most subtle nuances of flavor. My mind, once consumed by self-doubt and the echoes of their cruel words, became a vibrant landscape of flavors, innovative ideas, and ambitious plans. I didn't just want to cook, I wanted to create immersive experiences, to evoke profound emotions, to build something beautiful and undeniable with my own two hands, something that spoke for itself. This quiet dedication, this relentless pursuit of mastery, was my secret weapon. It was the ultimate defiance against those who judged me solely on my exterior, on the shallow criteria of popularity and looks. I was building my kingdom, one meticulously crafted dish at a time, entirely in the shadows, entirely on my own terms. My progress was slow, arduous, almost painfully incremental, but it was unwavering. I worked my way up the ladder in various kitchens, from a frantic, demanding line cook, to a sous chef in a bustling bistro, then eventually to head chef in a charming, but ultimately limited, boutique eatery. Each experience was a vital stepping stone, a hard-won lesson learned, a crucial refinement of my craft and my burgeoning vision. I learned not just about the art of cooking, but about the intricate science of management, about ethical sourcing, about the delicate, complex balance of an entire culinary operation. My reputation began to precede me, whispered quietly among food critics and industry insiders as a chef with an extraordinary palate, an innovative approach, and an almost obsessive attention to detail. Yet, to the superficial world Seraphina inhabited, the world of society pages and exclusive clubs, I remained utterly invisible, a ghost of their cruel past, surely struggling, surely failing, surely still wallowing in obscurity. They saw my quietness as a weakness, my lack of social media fanfare as irrelevance, a sign of my continued insignificance. It was during this intensely focused, formative period that I learned of Ambrosia's struggles. The restaurant, an iconic establishment in the city's fine dining scene, had been in decline for years. Its original owner, a legendary but aging chef, was losing his touch, bogged down by outdated tradition and stubbornly resistant to any form of change. The loyal, old-money clientele was dwindling, gradually being replaced by a newer generation of diners seeking more dynamic, contemporary, and exciting culinary experiences. Ambrosia, that bastion of old money and established aristocracy, the very symbol of everything Seraphina and her clique held sacred, everything they aspired to embody, was quietly bleeding money, its prestige slowly, irrevocably eroding. The thought struck me like a bolt of lightning, a sudden, blinding flash of pure, exhilarating clarity. Ambrosia. The very place they considered their untouchable domain, a hallowed temple dedicated to their kind, consecrated by their presence. What sweeter irony, what greater statement could there possibly be, than to transform that very temple into a vibrant, undeniable reflection of my own vision, my own undeniable essence? The idea consumed me, burning brighter than any flame in my kitchen. I embarked on a clandestine mission, a secret operation of meticulous research and strategic planning, poring over financial reports, consulting discreetly with restaurant brokers, even dining there anonymously multiple times to observe its flaws firsthand, to pinpoint every weakness, every outdated detail. My savings, painstakingly accumulated over a decade of relentless work and extreme frugality, along with a shrewdly secured bank loan and a few quiet, strategic investments from a former mentor who believed in me implicitly, formed the foundation of my audacious bid. The acquisition process was a delicate, intricate dance of negotiation, complex legalities, and utter, absolute secrecy. I worked tirelessly, often sleeping only a few hours a night, driven by the sheer, unyielding force of my ambition. The existing staff, disillusioned and weary from years of decline, were quietly, carefully retained, many of them grateful for the promise of a fresh start under new, visionary leadership. During the months of transformation, Seraphina and her friends continued to frequent Ambrosia, completely, utterly oblivious to the quiet revolution taking place beneath their very noses. They complained incessantly about the food, the service, the dated decor, voicing their opinions loudly and dismissively, but never once did they suspect the true nature of the profound changes underway. They grumbled about the new blood the restaurant desperately needed, never for a second imagining that the very new blood they spoke of, the invigorating force that would revive their cherished institution, was the very girl they had once dismissed as unworthy, as insignificant. I personally overhauled the menu, infusing classic dishes with modern techniques and unexpected, vibrant, audacious flavors. I redesigned the interior, maintaining its inherent, historical elegance but adding touches of contemporary warmth and intimacy, creating an atmosphere that was both grand and welcoming. I personally trained the staff, instilling in them a passion for genuine hospitality and a meticulous, almost obsessive eye for detail. The transformation was profound, complete, but intentionally discreet, like a caterpillar weaving its chrysalis in plain sight before silently emerging as a breathtaking butterfly. My quiet determination had always been my strength, now, it was the meticulous architect of my silent, undeniable victory. The night of the grand reveal was meticulously planned, every detail considered, every contingency accounted for. There was no advertising, no splashy reopening party, no grand announcement designed to draw attention. It was a soft launch, a quiet transition intended to let the sheer quality of the revitalized ambrosia speak for itself, to let the transformation unfold organically. Seraphina and her friends had their standing reservation, a weekly ritual they never missed, a sacred appointment in their social calendar. I knew they would be among the very first to experience the new ambrosia, completely unprepared for the true nature of its transformation, completely unaware of the architect behind it. I remember watching them enter that evening, a familiar wave of self-importance preceding them. Seraphina, as always, led the charge, her head held conspicuously high, her gaze sweeping over the subtly altered entrance, perhaps noticing a new, more artful floral arrangement or a slightly different, warmer lighting fixture, but immediately dismissing it as trivial, a minor aesthetic update. Her friends trailed behind her, accustomed to the familiar comforts of their sanctuary, their unchallenged domain. They were led to their usual table, a prime spot near the large windows overlooking the glittering city skyline. They settled in, their conversation already vibrant, punctuated by Seraphina's sharp, confident laughter, a sound that no longer held any power over me. They scrolled through the new menus, perhaps a flicker of surprise at the innovative, unfamiliar dishes, but still, no deeper realization, no spark of recognition. They were blind to the truth staring them in the face. The moment, my moment, came when I walked directly towards their table. I had chosen this precise instant with careful deliberation, with a strategist's precision. The dining room was bustling, alive with a lively hum of refined conversation and the gentle clinking of cutlery, a symphony of enjoyment. I had just finished personally plating a particularly intricate, visually stunning appetizer for a discerning critic at another table, ensuring my presence would be noted, my role observed. My chef's jacket, perfectly crisp and stark white, bore no name. My hair was pulled back elegantly, revealing the calm, composed strength of my face. As I approached, Seraphina, mid-sentence, looked up, her expression one of mild annoyance at being interrupted, a subtle frown creasing her brow. Her eyes, initially dismissive, suddenly widened, a flicker of recognition, then a flash of confusion, then a dawning, horrifying disbelief that spread across her features like a stain. "Lyra," she uttered, her voice thin, uncertain, barely audible above the ambient noise, as if she couldn't quite believe the words were leaving her lips. Her friends, sensing her sudden, dramatic shift in demeanor, quieted, turning their attention towards me, their faces a tableau of confusion. The familiar faces of her clique, once filled with their haughty amusement and sneering superiority, now registered varying degrees of shock, a quiet horror slowly blossoming in their eyes. I met her gaze evenly, a calm, unwavering presence, my composure an impenetrable shield. "Good evening, Seraphina," I said, my voice clear and steady, carrying just enough to be heard by her and her closest friends without drawing undue attention from the rest of the blissful room. "Welcome to Ambrosia." Her eyes darted wildly around, searching desperately for a manager, an owner, someone to explain this impossibility, to rescue her from this surreal encounter. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, a trace of the old sneer returning, her voice attempting to regain its familiar, condescending tone. Are you a new waitress? An usher?" She laughed then, a brittle, forced, desperate sound, utterly devoid of genuine amusement. "Goodness, Lyra, you've certainly changed. But still stuck in service, I see. Still serving people like us." A quiet, confident smile, one of pure, unadulterated triumph, spread slowly across my face. "Not quite, Seraphina," I stated, my eyes holding hers, allowing her to see the depth of my resolve. "I am Lyra. And as of 3 months ago, I am the owner of Ambrosia." The air around their table seemed to literally freeze, becoming heavy, suffocating. Seraphina's jaw dropped, her perfectly made-up face contorting in a grotesque mask of disbelief, confusion, and raw, visceral fury. Her friends exchanged stunned, horrified glances, their earlier self-assuredness dissolving into awkward, mortifying silence. The triumph was not in the words themselves, though they were potent, but in the quiet, undeniable power behind them. It was in the years of dedication, the countless sacrifices, the unwavering belief in my own inherent worth that had culminated in that single, profound, undeniable statement. The fat and ugly girl they had ridiculed, the girl they had dismissed as insignificant and unworthy, was no longer asking for a seat at their table. She owned the entire establishment. She owned their most cherished sanctuary. The silence that followed my revelation at Seraphina's table was deafening, a vacuum amplified by the gentle, contented hum of conversation from other tables, blissfully unaware of the seismic shift occurring just meters away. Seraphina's initial, stunned shock quickly morphed into a furious, almost desperate attempt to regain control of the crumbling situation, to reassert her dominance. Her face, usually so composed and effortlessly elegant, was flushed a furious crimson, her lips pressed into a thin, trembling line of barely suppressed rage. "This is absurd," she finally hissed, her voice barely above a whisper, yet vibrating with suppressed, barely contained rage. "You own Ambrosia? That's impossible. This is a joke, Lyra. A tasteless, pathetic joke." She swiveled her head wildly, frantically searching the room, as if expecting someone to appear and confirm this was all a terrible mistake. "Where's management? I want to speak to the real owner. This is an insult. I demand an explanation for this charade." I remained perfectly still, my expression unreadable, my posture unyielding, a picture of calm authority. "You are speaking to the owner, Seraphina," I replied calmly, my voice unwavering, betraying none of the deep, quiet satisfaction that privately bloomed within me. Every single member of my staff, from the most junior commis chef to the most experienced sommelier, to the bussers clearing tables, will confirm that. The deeds are signed, the funds transferred. Ambrosia is mine, fully and legally. Her eyes narrowed, filled with a venomous disbelief that twisted her features. "You think you can just walk in here and take over our restaurant? This is our place. You don't belong here, Lyra. You never did. You're trying to humiliate us." She then tried to desperately appeal to her friends, her voice rising slightly, a hint of desperation creeping in. "Do you hear this? This is ridiculous, isn't it? Tell her this is ridiculous." But her friends, usually so quick to echo her every sentiment, to act as her sycophantic chorus, were uncharacteristically, eerily quiet. They shifted uncomfortably in their expensive seats, their faces a mixture of profound embarrassment and a dawning, terrible comprehension. One of them, a woman named Chloe, who had always been a quieter, more hesitant follower in Seraphina's formidable shadow, actually met my gaze briefly, a flicker of something akin to shame, or perhaps even a grudging respect, passing through her eyes. They knew. They understood the gravity of the situation, the undeniable reality unfolding before them. Seraphina's carefully constructed world of inherited entitlement was crumbling, publicly, dramatically, in her most cherished, supposedly untouchable sanctuary. "I am merely stating a fact, Seraphina," I continued, my unwavering composure clearly infuriating her further, chipping away at her rapidly fracturing self-control. "This restaurant is under new management, my management. And the new Ambrosia, I assure you, operates on principles of genuine respect and uncompromising culinary excellence, not on outdated social hierarchy or superficial status." That was the absolute breaking point for Seraphina. She pushed back her chair with such force that it scraped loudly across the polished floor, drawing a few curious glances from neighboring tables, breaking the illusion of their private drama. "This is an outrage. We're leaving. We will never set foot in this establishment again. Mark my words, Lyra, you will regret this. You will fail. This is nothing but a pathetic attempt at revenge, and it will cost you everything." She stalked out of the dining room then, her silk dress rustling indignantly, her friends scrambling awkwardly to follow her, a desperate, pathetic tableau of public humiliation. One of them, as they passed by, mumbled a hasty, almost inaudible "good luck, Lyra," avoiding my eyes, a fleeting acknowledgement of my victory, a tiny crack in their collective facade. It wasn't an apology, but it was a recognition, a tangible sign of their understanding, a small concession. As the heavy door swung shut behind them, a collective, almost imperceptible sigh seemed to ripple through the room. My staff, who had witnessed the entire, tense exchange with silent, loyal support, now looked at me with pride, their eyes shining with admiration and a quiet sense of shared victory. The brief, intense confrontation had not disrupted the seamless flow of the evening. If anything, it had solidified their belief in me, their unwavering loyalty. I turned back to the pass, a quiet, profound satisfaction settling over me. The emotional outburst I had once feared from Seraphina now felt utterly powerless. Her anger was a petty storm contained within a teacup, while my success was an unchartable ocean, vast and ever-expanding. Months passed since that evening, and Ambrosia under my ownership has flourished beyond my wildest dreams, exceeding every expectation. The quiet transformation I initiated blossomed into outright, widespread acclaim. Food critics, initially skeptical of the sudden, unannounced change of ownership, now rave about our innovative menu, the exquisite flavors, and the impeccable, attentive service. Reservations are booked weeks, sometimes months, in advance, and the restaurant is consistently listed among the city's top dining destinations, a beacon of culinary excellence. My passion, once a secret solace, a private retreat, is now the vibrant, beating heart of a thriving, respected business. I walk through the dining room now not as a shadow, not as an anonymous face, but as the confident, respected owner, my vision tangible in every meticulously plated dish, every genuine smile from my dedicated staff, every delighted murmur from a satisfied diner. This is my legacy, built from the ground up. My personal life, too, has found a profound, unwavering sense of peace. The echoes of fat and ugly no longer hold any power over me. They are distant whispers, mere footnotes, faint, irrelevant murmurs in a much grander, far more compelling story of resilience, self-discovery, and undeniable triumph. The external validation I once craved so desperately, the acceptance from people like Seraphina and her clique, now seems utterly meaningless, a hollow pursuit. My worth is self-defined, built brick by painstaking brick through unwavering effort, tireless dedication, and the relentless pursuit of my true calling, my undeniable purpose. As for Seraphina and her clique, their furious attempts to rally against Lyra's ambrosia were entirely futile, pathetic in their failure. They tried desperately to find a new sanctuary, a new bastion of their privilege, but no other establishment, however exclusive or expensive, could replicate the unique prestige, the deep-rooted history, and the sheer culinary excellence of the original ambrosia, now revitalized and transformed by my hands, infused with my spirit. Their social standing, while still superficially intact, carries a faint, inescapable shadow. They still frequent the same exclusive circles, but the story of ambrosia, of their public humiliation at the hands of the girl they once mocked, has quietly become a whispered legend, recounted with a certain, subtle schadenfreude among the city's elite. I hear rumors, occasionally, that Seraphina avoids my restaurant at all costs, preferring to dine at less prominent, less challenging, less threatening establishments, places where she doesn't have to face the living embodiment of her past cruelty. The power dynamics between us have irreversibly shifted, profoundly and permanently. She is no longer the one who dictates my worth. She never truly was. My journey from being dismissed as fat and ugly to owning ambrosia was never truly about revenge in the petty sense. It was about defining my own narrative, proving to myself, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that my worth was inherent, undeniable, not dictated by the cruel opinions of others. It was about transforming deep-seated adversity into an unshakable foundation for enduring success. The most profound lesson I learned is that true strength lies not in superficial appearances or inherited privilege, but in quiet, unwavering determination, in relentless dedication to your craft, and in the courage to passionately pursue your unique vision despite the naysayers, despite the critics, despite the bullies. The world may cast its judgments, it may try to define you by its narrow standards, but your true power lies in your ability to craft your own destiny, to build your own masterpiece, and to let your undeniable talent speak for itself, far louder and far more eloquently than any taunt or dismissal ever could. Embrace your unique path, for it is often hidden in the shadows of adversity that we forge our most brilliant and enduring light.